Italy has heavy regulation on lease contracts. The law establishes several conditions that must be held whenever you sign a lease agreement or a lease contract for a residential, commercial, or industrial property. So most notably, the law establishes the duration, the maximum duration of lease contracts. So whenever we talk residential contracts, I'm sure you've heard of the 4+4, 3+2, or the transition contract, which lasts up to 1 year. So those are all durations set by the law. You cannot exceed those. You cannot decide a different duration. And on top of that, this must be established in the contract. You need to refer to the applicable laws, which are different for transition contracts to the regular ones. So for instance, the 4+4 means that the duration is for 4 years, which is renewable of another 4 if any of the parties involved in the contract says otherwise. So this is very important to draft the lease contract properly. And once you have done that, you need to register that at the local tax office. So the local tax office is the place where you are resident or where the property is located. And back in the days, you had to walk in with 2 copies of the contract. The tax office would put a stamp on that, and then you're required to pay register tax and stamp duty. Now the whole process is done online. You can upload the contracts, set out the details of the contract, so who's the lessor, who's the lessee, what's the duration of the contract, which properties, if they're in full or just part of that, are subject to the lease, etc., etc. And you can pay all your dues online. So on a regular contract, you must pay 2% register tax calculated on the annual value of the lease. So if the annual value is 10,000, you pay 200 euros of register tax, plus 16 euros every 4 pages or 100 lines of contract. And this is due at contract signature and every year anniversary of the contract, which, by the way, this must be equally split between the lessor and the lessee. So the first thing you have to do is to register the contract within 30 days of its signature, even if the lease date is fast forward in the future. So let's say you sign it today, but the contract will start in 90 days. Well, you have to register that within 30 days of its signature. So the only way to avoid paying any tax at registration at each anniversary is the Cedolare Secca. You're still required to register the contract online or at the tax office, but the tax payable is 0. Now, you also pay 67 euros if you seize the contract before its natural expiration day, if it is not under the Cedolare Secca, in which case you pay 0 again. Unfortunately, the Cedolare Secca only applies to residential premises. You cannot have a Cedolare Secca contract if your property is commercial or industrial.